Welcome back. I think we can carry over from where we left off last time. We had looked at how to create a user interface and how to log in the user. So it means that the users are able to log in at the backend. So I think that was good, and I hope you look through it because, of course, moving forward, we want to be able to see how we can now implement other features as far as this application is concerned. So, ideally, what you want to do is we want to create a user interface over here where we can now be able to allow the user to do certain things like maybe say add cities, add airlines, do flight bookings. Okay, flight bookings maybe be done at the front end, but generally the things that need to be done at the back end is what we intend to achieve. So that's what we want to do today. So I'll just go back into the code that we have been writing, which is here, and I'll create a new file here, and I will call it settings. Now you have an option of using HTML, but I'll use PHP in this particular case because we are running it on the server side. So either format will be able to work out. Now the good thing with PHP is that it can allow us to be able to include other files. For example, we can do part files. Like for example, if you want to do styling and all that, we can be able to create part files and we include them directly. Let me just show you how that works out because ideally that's the standard practice for that. So I'll simply say these are settings. Settings. So on settings here, I might want to link some files, like for example, CSS files, and one of them could be Bootstrap. So instead of doing that, I can come and create a partial file here, and I'll simply say uh, uh, headers dot. It can be a text file, or I can make it HTML, no big deal. So this headers.html, now I will include my my links. So there's a link. And by the way, I hope I've shared my screen. So there's a link. And this one goes to see just headers.html. No, actually, it should be going to CSS. Then the file we're looking for is Bootstrap. Then also we are looking at another file called Font Awesome. So this will be all like that. So this is going to be header. So anything that you want to include as header, you'll just add them here. You want to integrate maps, you want to integrate other APIs and all that. You want to have other plugins like the ones for creating UI, like jQuery UI and all that. You'll add all of them inside here as you want. So that is headers. So I'll close that. Then I'll create another one called footer, not inside CSS, but inside just the home. I'll call it footer. New file. I'll call it footer.html. So all the files that I want to attach at the footer, I'll put them here. So these ones are going to be script files of type source. So I'm going to inside JavaScript folder, and inside JavaScript folder, I'll need to get Bootstrap. Then still inside JavaScript folder, I might want to get something else like do I have Font Awesome? No, I don't have Font Awesome. So I think yeah, I can include functions. So functions are going to be common across the entire application. So once I have these two files in place, the header and the footer, when I come here, what I'll do instead of linking this one file, because this is a PHP file, I'll simply say PHP, then I'll simply say require ones, then it's not header links per se, but it is headers.html. So it is headers.html. So that will include for me all the components that are inside this file. All the code that is inside this file will be taken and it will be put inside here. So I can put them on separate lines so that you can see that. So that's how you would include partial files. Things like style files, common files that contain functionality like housekeeping tasks and all that, you might want to include them like this so that when you make a change to that file, it applies to the entire application. You don't have to go file by file to make those changes as you move along. That's why this is important. So I can come on the footer here again. I'll simply say PHP, PHP. Then here I'll just require once, require once, and I'll just take this file called footer.html like that. So that should allow me to include all the files. Now, when the user logs in, I think we're looking at the index here. When the user logs in, today I want us to redirect and go directly to um, I want us to go directly to not dashboard but settings. I want us to go to settings. So I'm assuming that when the user logs in, of course you're going to go to dashboard, but for this particular case, or rather, I can leave it at the dashboard. Then we can create a menu. Then that menu now should enable us to be able to navigate our page. Okay, I think that would be a better solution. So if we come here and we say localhost, and I think it's Expedia, and inside Expedia, we ask for username. I think it was test user, and the password was 123456, and it logs us in. So it means that perfect the code that we wrote last time is working perfectly okay. So we just want to make sure that this works fine. So what you're going to do is you're going to create a navigation. You can do vertical or you can do horizontal. For now, maybe let's do horizontal. And usually, when you're working with Bootstrap, like in this case, I've already integrated Bootstrap, the only thing you need to do is to call the Bootstrap classes or use the Bootstrap element to be able to create your menus. Now, these people are coming late. Now, okay, I think I'll forgive you for today because now you're distracting others and I need to move back and forth. So let's create a menu. So instead of this welcome, let's create a menu here. So for us to create a menu here, what you need to do is just go to Bootstrap. I'm using version 4, and I want to say I want to use navigation or navbar. So here, what's going to do is going to give me an navbar for Bootstrap 4. This Bootstrap 5, if you want to use it, I prefer to use 4 because it doesn't break my application. So this is an example of a navigation bar over here. So getting started layout. So all these are navigation, and as you can see, it gives us how to be able to create this. So if you come here, you can create a navigation bar that looks like this, and this is the code for doing that. Now I want something very simple, something like this, or even this, or maybe you can even look at it from a vertical perspective, which means it's flowing from top to bottom. Do I have it here? That one is when it is hidden. Anyway, let's just pick one. So the whole point is when you're dealing with navigation, what will happen is that you're just going to have some unordered list. Then for each list item, you're going to give them a class called something like navbar nav. That's the only thing that you need to do, and the rest should be able to work out. So as you can see, um, I have the navbar, which is here, the navbar. So it can be expanded. It's expandable when the screen is very large, which means that if the screen is small, when the screen is very small, you just make it very tiny. You can see it collapses. So when I click on that, it opens. That's what navbar expand LG means. So it will expand on a large screen. It is going to be light in color and has a light background. So all these are not necessary, and even probably maybe up to this point, that's what is necessary. So it's a navbar, and it should be expanded by default when it is large. When the screen is small enough, it is collapsed. So if I just slightly make the screen larger, you can see now it is showing the whole of it. That's how the nav works. So it's not really something difficult. As you can see, it's just a bunch of uh, this is the branding, which is here. You can put an image. Now this button here is this button that will appear here when the screen becomes smaller, maybe like somebody is viewing this on a mobile device. And of course now we'll have the drop down menu, which will be able to be also shown when in full when the screen is showing, and otherwise when the screen is too small, they'll be hidden or they'll be collapsed. So that now when you click on the button is when they show up. That's basically what it is. So I'll copy this. Sometimes you don't have to type it from scratch. Then I will come and bring it inside my uh, my dashboard over here. So instead of saying welcome to Expedia, I'll simply put the navigation here. And of course, I'll format it nicely. So I have the nav, where it starts, where it ends. Then I have the brand. I'll simply say this is, and you can put even an icon because you already have font awesome included. Let's put something like a plane that is flying. So I'll come here and I'll come to font awesome. Then I'll search for an icon of a flight and call it Expedia. So icons, then I'll search flight or aeroplane. The version of Font Awesome I have is version 5, so I can pick that. You can also download version 7 free one. The ones I have is 5 Pro, so it gives me all the icons. So for flight, I can have something like an aeroplane, let's say landing. There's an aeroplane landing, so 7, let's use version 5. Version 7 is way advanced. So let's see if we have for flights, for flight, from awesome, let's just say landing or takeoff. So we have landing. I can say plane arrival here. I think I like this. Okay, maybe takeoff. I think takeoff looks good. So plane departure, something like this. So we can put this as our logo. So plane departure as our logo. So again, so instead of putting this text over here, we can put a font awesome icon with a class of font awesome light, font awesome plane departure. That's what they have told us the name is. We can make it a little bit larger and we can make it affixed to it. So that should be able to display a plane instead of some text when we are trying to do our logo. Let's just check if that has been effected. Yes, here there is no plane, so it means that plane departure, probably maybe how I have called it here. Departure is the exact name that they use. The exact name that they use is for plane departure. So this is it. So I'll put it here, and I can add the text Expedia. Let's see if it works out. So we don't have. Let me see. Probably maybe some things have not loaded. So the files that I've loaded, yeah, I'm not seeing that. So, oh, it means that what I didn't do is I did not include these files. I did not include these files. That's the mistake I made. Index here, not index, but dashboard. I should have included these files. That should load for me all the styling files. Then this other footer one should be able to link for me all the, not that, but it should have been settings. This should include for me all JavaScript that I need. Sorry, my mistake. I had assumed that I was working on the same file, so that should allow me to be able to get it right now. So it tells me include headers.html was not found. Let's look at the path. So there's nothing like includes. They're in the same folder. There's no headers.html. It is on the same path. The headers and the dashboard are on the same level, so they are not in a separate folder. That was my mistake also. Let's try that again. So Control F5. So it means that the icons I have here, Let me see. I thought we use font awesome web fonts. Actually, it's here, and font awesome is here. It's version 5.14. Yeah, why is it not? Okay, let me just try another. Probably maybe the ones I downloaded were the freeware versions. Let me try this. Um, it should be under dashboard. Where is our dashboard? It's here. So instead of font awesome light, let me use font awesome solid. Yeah, I think it's the icon pack that I'm using. Yeah, you can see we have our icon here and Expedia over there as our application. So that's totally okay. So let's customize the menu. The menu can be it can be home. We can have different settings over here. So for now, um, let's okay, home is fine, but we can have settings. We can also have another menu for help and support. Then we don't need so let me just remove those ones. But of course you can add menus here as many as you would like. So let's see how that looks like. So F5, now I have my menu here. So I have home, settings, of course you can always format these things to look the way you'd like them to look. So my focus is when I click on these settings, I want to switch to the settings tab, and then that should work out. Now, because the navigation or the menu is going to be standard, what I can do here, I can just cut this and create a new file, call it navigation.html. Then I paste the code there so that every time I make changes to that, it applies across the entire application. So when I come to settings here, or even the dashboard here I just require, I know it's sorry, like that. So this require its navigation, or I can call it navbar.html. We have called navigation.html. That should allow me to be able to just use it as it is. You can see there are currently no changes as far as that is concerned. And if I was to add a new menu, like actually, let me just include it in the other files first of all, then we'll see how that works out. So I'll come here and I'll come to settings here and I'll make it part of this. So then, of course, when I come to that navigation and I say this one, when you click on it, you should go to settings.php. You can see now that particular feature. If I refresh it here and I click settings, you can see it goes to settings.php. Settings.php include headers. Headers was wrongly done. There is no include headers. Settings, there is no include headers. It's only headers. Sorry. So you can see settings with whether I'm on settings, whether I'm on home and all that. So I can click home. So I'll simply say on my navigation here, this one for home should go to dashboard.php. Did I make the dashboard PHP? Yes. So on the dashboard, what I could do is um, on the dashboard here, what I can do is I can just put a text here and say this is dashboard. Then I can come to my settings here and put another heading just to denote the difference. This is settings. So you can see this is very important because once I have this file in one place, then I just keep on importing it back and forth. I don't need to keep on recreating my menu over and over again. I can create it once, I can format it once, and everything is just fine. Whenever I make an update, it applies across the database. So on settings, you can see the settings. When I come to home, you can see now this is dashboard. So you can see my menus are actually working and I've actually not repeated anything. So that's the general idea on what we wanted to do. So now that that is in place, of course, we'll deal with the dashboard much later on if time allows us. What we wanted to focus on was how to actually use the settings. And you can even go ahead and say, maybe say when this one is active, you can change the color, you can change the underline and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, actually, I'm seeing it's a bit grayish. So sorry. Actually, you cannot, you can't, you can add this to the class that is active. So for now, I'll just remove it to avoid confusion, because here it is telling us that home is the one that is active, but actually settings was one that was active at this point. So yeah, so we are good up that point. So let's look at settings now. Besides this navbar, we can also do what we call tabs. So the tabs is what I want to use. Like if you go to the Expedia website, Expedia here, you will see this stays, flights. So this is an example of a tab. So this is what I want us to use in order to be able to style our document properly. So what I want to do is we want to allow a user, when they click on settings, they can access various types of settings. They can access, first of all, airlines. They can also access countries, cities, airports, and so forth and so forth. So they have a list of where they can be able to configure all these things by themselves. Okay. So now that we have that in mind, so what we could do is we could now come to settings here. Then from settings, instead of this setting one, we can create navigation. We can create, so here we'll simply say create a um, tabs list for all the things that you want to do. So each tab is going to have its element. I'm going to implement one or two, then maybe you can be able to to present others. Now, because I want it to look nicer, I'll put it inside a card. Then I'll put it inside the card body. So I'll put the container inside the card body. So what that does is basically to create a bootstrap card, which is this, and then it formats it nicely. But I also want the card. I also want the page to be container fluid. So when I'm requiring this navigation, actually I'll have to create a separate container here and call it container fluid, which means it should leave a bit of margin from left and right. So all these things are going to go inside that container fluid so that the menu flows nicely. It leaves a bit of breathing space as far as the browser is concerned. It's not a must, but that way you can see it has left a bit of spacing from left and right. Of course, you can do the container fluid, you can do the menu, the navigation outside the container so it covers the whole width. It will depend on how you want to have the look and feel. So I think that would be a better solution. Yeah. So this one will be full, but then the other portion can have some sort of spacing surrounding it, something of the sort. Then from there, now is when now we can come and create our tab list. So inside here is where now we create our tab list. Tab list. Okay, something like that. So for the tab list, again, it's also a nav. It's also a bootstrap nav, but I think they're called tabs. Tab list. Tab is a part. Yeah, it's here. This is an example of a tab. Yeah, it doesn't look like what we want, but we can apply a few styling. It's exactly the same thing, only that they don't look um I think are the same. But what's important for us is for us to get the tab itself first of all, then we can be able to format the active tab, because now you can see the format is what is slightly off, but generally the idea is that idea is what we are looking for. So I just copy this tab and paste it inside here. I'll format it nicely. So all this should be, yeah, that's what it should be. So for the navigation, this is going to be the list at the top. Then here is going to be the tab content. So I'll just go through one by one. So usually what I do, I want to provide some certain elements here. So I want to create tabs for, first of all, countries, then cities, then airlines, then currencies, and what else were we talking about when you were capturing the master files? Or basically, etc., etc. So you can go through and add all of those. So the first one, which is going to be active, instead of saying nav home, I'll call this city. So what I'll probably do is to press Control Tab. I mean, yes, Control D. It will select for me. It will create multiple cursors. Then I'll simply say this is countries, not counties, but countries. So these are countries. Then here I'll list countries. Then the next one would be cities. So I'll come this one, Control D, cities, not N cities, but cities. You can always correct. Since there are multiple tabs, you can always correct them, cities. So this one becomes cities. Then we also have airlines. So instead of saying nav contact, you can simply say airlines, and you create airlines here. Then you can add a new one called currencies. So here you'll have currencies. So instead of these airlines, press Control Tab, you say currencies like that. Then you put here currencies. Then you can add as many as possible. Now what's important is for you to come down here, and then for this particular portions, because this is a tab content. Did I miss one? Because this is a tab content, there should be an extra div here. Is there an extra div here? There should be an extra div, because this div, no, actually it was okay. It was only indentation, yeah. So this is now the tab contents. So this first part here are the tab list. So this part here is the tab list. Then this is the tab content. So for the tab content, the first one that's going to show is going to be, you match them with their data target here. So this is countries. So countries. Then this other one, Control D, is cities. Then this other one is airlines. Then I can copy this last one, and I say these are currencies. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to put some text here just so that we see the difference. So this one I'll put maybe say H5, and it's going to be countries, not not counties, countries. Then I can put another one here. So we have the first one. Actually, the first one is the countries. So H5, countries. Then this one is cities. And of course, this other one is airlines. H5, airlines, sorry. Then, of course, the last one is currencies. So this other one is currencies. Currencies like that. So if I try to run this one back, I should see countries. Well, this might not work because what might have happened is that I may have forgotten to include the bootstrap JavaScript file, which enables me now to activate this. So let's just do that. Inside our inside our footer here, let's actually bootstrap is included. Why isn't it working? Let me see. I did not include jQuery, which is a requirement for Bootstrap 4 and below. So that was my mistake. So I need to include here jQuery first. So you can see sometimes you make mistakes and you need to fix them. So this one I'm going to JS, then I'll pick jQuery, that one. I think with that one in place, I don't have any errors. So this should be able to work nicely. So you can see currencies, airlines, cities, like that. So that is technically working and that's fine. The only problem is it does not look like what we want to have over here. So what we could do is we could customize that particular styling. Um, Somebody, okay, there's nobody in the waiting room. I thought there was somebody in the waiting lounge. So what we need to do is just to make sure we want to have the look and feel similar to what we have over here. And basically, yes, that is just all about changing the active nav tab. Okay, so if you click on this and you click on that, you're going to see it has a class called nav tab nav link here. It's a nav tab, then there's a nav link, and we want to check if it is active. So that's what we intend to achieve. So that now we can just give it the styling that we want it to have, then we'll be good to go. So for the styling, for changing the styling, you could actually introduce a file here, say custom CSS, because you want it to apply across the entire application. So custom.css. Then inside this custom.css, we're going to write our custom CSS here. So here we are targeting something called nav tabs, something that has a class of nav tabs dot. Then these nav tabs, we also want to look for a child called nav. I think it's a link when it is active. So nav.link, and I think when it is active. So I think I think that is how it looks like. Let me just check. This is the active one. So it is yeah, nav. It is nav tabs, then nav.link.active. So all of them, they are all three classes at once. You know, separate. So nav link nav tabs, nav link active. So again, it is nav tabs, which is here. Then the other one is nav link active. So yeah, so that should allow us to be able to change the styling properly. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make it bold. So font weight, I'm going to make it bold like that. Sorry. Then the other thing I'm going to do is to change the background to be a transparent. So background color, make it transparent. So there's nothing on the background. The other thing I can do is probably to change the border at the bottom, because you can see anything in CSS has four borders. It has border top, right, left, and the bottom. So there is the only, if I compare it with this one, it only has a border bottom that is a little bit thicker. So probably that's the only thing that I want to have. So what I will come here, I'll simply say border bottom. This border bottom, I can give it 3 pixels. I don't know if 3 pixels so much. I can make it solid and I can make it blue. Or if you have the exact hexadecimal color, I think I don't know the exact for this, but that is basically it. That's blue. Then now I can remove the other borders. I can say border. The other one is right. So this border right, I'll simply say it has none. Then I also come to border left. Border left, left, and I'll say none also. Then there's also border top, the border at the top. I can see seeing that. So I think with that, then I need to include this CSS file as part of our header files so that it is included in all the files that we're going to use. So I can make it header, then I can include it here. So I can link it, and this is going to be CSS. We're going to go inside the CSS folder and look for a file called custom, like that. So if I refresh this, sorry, you can see now it has given it the color that we are looking for, which is awesome. Well, you can change this color if you wanted to. Probably when the class is active, you can check this, and you can say uh, that is active. That's the element. So inside that element, there is a button. So there is a tab nav link active. Then I can change the color. I can come here and change the color to blue. 5. So you can see now it's blue. When it's active, it's going to be blue. And I think it's close to what we have over here. Of course, the font name that we have here is what is different, but the general idea is more or less the same. Okay, so that's how we create the tabs and how we now target the various components of the tag. So let's work with countries and see how that can be displayed. So in the countries, what I'll do is I'll display a table here. Then I'll display a button down here that says add country. Then from there, when I click add countries, I'll display a model for you to type the name of the country. Then you can be able to save the country inside your system. So generally, that would allow us to do the CRUD operation on how these countries work. So what we are going to do is we're going to remove the placeholder for country. Then we can now be able to see how everything works. So for country, of course, for the tab content, what I could do, I can say the margin bottom, maybe put it 3, so that you separate these spaces. These countries and these are separated. Well, technically it didn't change it, so it means that we have to change our tab pen. No, it should be in, I think the problem was not that. The problem should have been margin top, not bottom. Otherwise, I put the margin bottom on the tabs themselves. So I did the opposite. I created the margin at the bottom. So you can see now it has left a bit of space between countries, and this now the content of the countries. So let's start from there. So at least now we have created our menu, we have created our tabs. So now we just need to populate the details down here. So for the countries here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a table. I'm going to create it with a class of table. I'm going to make the table small. I'm also going to make the table um, hover. So table small, table hover. Then I'm going to create a table head. Then for each table head, I'm going to have 5 columns. So for the columns, the first one will be counter, number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then there'll be country name. We can probably put the flag if we wanted, and probably date added and who added it. Then of course we can put icons for edit and delete. So that will be edit, and that one will also be delete. So I'm putting an unbreaking space because I won't have headings over there. So I just put a comment here. This is edit, and this other one will be, sorry, this other one will be delete, something of the sort. So that's the table. So once I'm done with the table, I'm going to come down here. I'll put a button with a class of button. It's going to be a small button. This is bootstrap. You can, if you're using something like Tailwind CSS or any other CSS class, or you create your own, that is still okay. But I'm using Bootstrap because I want it to do this, most of the styling for me, rather than me doing the styling all the way from the ground up. So button small. Then I'll make it also green in color, so the button success. Then I'll give it an ID that says add new country. Okay, so something like that. So maybe I can leave out the flag for now to avoid it complicating things for us. So add new country. Then I'll press enter. So for the button, I'll simply put font awesome light, font awesome. Okay, I can put font awesome solid, font awesome plus, then font awesome large and font awesome fixed width. When you put dot dot means they just add those classes together like that. Then I'll simply say here the text is add new country. Add new country. Okay. So add new country. So I refresh that. Now you can see I have a table now. The only problem is this button is not formatted properly, which is okay. We can go ahead and change it. So button should have a class of btn first. Should have a class of btn, then something like that. So refresh this. Now that looks nicer. So now I have a table, and now all the countries that I have within the system can be placed here. And really, all these things we are done, we're just repeating them all over again to see how we can come up with a look and feel UI that is friendly and is usable to people. So first of all, let's list all the countries that we have in the system inside here. Okay, so I want to believe that when we were doing our controllers, and especially country operations, we simply say get countries. Here, that one lists for us all the countries, okay? The only thing I am not sure is if it's going to give us the name of the person who added, but that's fine. I think we can deal with that much later. So since we already have this, what we need to do is just to come back to now our settings. So we need to create our file here called settings.css.js. So each HTML file or PHP file will have to go with an associated JavaScript file because we are trying to separate concerns. We don't want to mix JavaScript with HTML in one particular file. So we want them to be separate. So I'll come settings here. Once I load all the files that are common, then I will go ahead and now load my settings file. So here I can come and say script is a source. Then I'll go to JS. Then I'll go to settings dot js like that. That should include the settings file. And of course, we're going to listen to, because using jQuery, when the document is ready, and we're going to execute this callback function. So once everything has loaded, we can just say console.log settings is loaded, just to make sure that the page is running. So we'll right click here, inspect, then go to source here, not source but console. Then we refresh the page, and we should, if everything is okay, we should have seen here settings loaded. So since it's not showing that, it means that the settings file has not been loaded. This is settings.js. So settings.js has not been loaded. So let's just come back here and check script source. So from the settings, which is here, go to JS folder, which is here. Then look for settings.js, which is here. This is already okay. Then settings.js says, or console.log. Just say console. Sorry, it was logged. I think it's the code that was wrong. Again, press Ctrl F5. If you see settings page loaded, it means that everything is working fine and there's no error. So, of course, at that point, it means that JavaScript is working. So, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to say, we'll put a comment here and say define DOM elements. So, I'll start with the table const. They are called the countries table. Countries table. That will be get me an element with an ID of countries table. Okay. So for now, I only need that for now. Then what I'm going to do is fetch and display countries. So fetch and display countries. I'm going to write a function here, and this function will be get countries. Get countries like that. So these countries, so I'll move these ones inside a bit so that we know where the DOM elements are assigned. So get countries, I'll simply use jQuery and tell it to get JSON. So get JSON means it will, you can use fetch, you can use the fetch API, but of course the fetch API will give you a promise, then the promise, you'll have to listen to its resolution, then you convert the data it gives you back to JSON, which for me is too much work. When I say get JSON, it will give me the data in JSON format already. I don't need to wait for a promise, then wait for the solve, then convert whatever has been returned in the promise as JSON, then I can now be able to use it. So that's why I'm using JSON get, but you can still use the JavaScript fetch API directly, and of course listen to once the promise has been resolved, then um, you can be able to now work on it. So here I'm going to go outside, and go to a folder called controllers. Then we have country operations. Then after country operations, the next parameter we need to give it is what to execute. So country operation says get countries. So I'll simply say get countries is true. I don't need any other data. So what will happen is there are two outcomes on this get JSON. It can be successful or it can fail. So usually when you just put it here directly as maybe say function data, it means that you're going to be dealing with only when it is successful. So this is allowed. You can pass the third parameter here, and this is allowed. But because I also want to listen to failure, instead of doing that, I'm going to come here and say when it is done. When it is done, then get the data that has been returned, then do the following. And when it fails, if it did not work properly, I'm going to get three things. One is the response from the server. Next is the status of whatever has been returned, and the third one will be an error that the JavaScript will have returned. So when it does not succeed, then we also need to know why it didn't succeed. So when I say get JSON, I'll tell it where to fetch the data from. Then I'll also tell it what payload to pass through the data. When it is done, it will give me back the data for which now I'll be able to navigate over there. Then after that, if it fails, of course, I'll also tell the user. So I also need to know where the notifications are. So I'll say country notifications. Notifications. So I'm going to take country notification here, come to my settings. I'll come where I have the country here, just before the table down here. I'll put that div. So there's a div here with country notification. So any error that displays, I'm going to show it from inside here or inside there. So I'm come back to settings. So if it fails, I'll take my country notifications and I'll say .html, and here I'll put something like that. I'll create a div with a class of alert danger, then I say an error occur. Then I'm not going to display the error, but rather I'm going to take the response that comes from the server and get the response text. Because the problem with error, it will tell me the JavaScript error. Probably maybe the data that has been returned is not a JSON object. That is not super useful. I want to know exactly what the server said as an error so that I can be able to debug much easily. Now, if everything was okay, then what I will need to do is I will create here a variable called results, and I'll assign to blank. Then for each result that occurs, so I'll simply say data, because it's going to be an array of elements. For each element in the array data, I'll pick it as a country. Then I'll also return the index, which is I, so I need to know what position it is on. Then for each and every element that was returned as an object, then I need to display them inside the table. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to create template string, which will populate that data for me. So I'll say create a table row, then give it a data ID, and that data ID should be country dot country, not country, but not county, but country. I don't know why I'm writing county. Country dot country ID. I want to believe that the column name is country ID. So when I come to Expedia booking here and I come to countries and I open this table, it is country ID and country name. Remember, I removed the flag because we didn't have the flag. That's why I removed it, and I thought it would be complicated. So that's country ID. Of course, I need to close that to avoid errors. Now, that will be country ID. So I'll create one row. So after each row, I need to create now the different columns. As you can see, the columns here are as follows: the counter, the name of the country, when it was added, and who added it. Okay. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to say create a table division, then template string, and give it counter I. By default, when I'm looping through each element, it is zero based index. So it's going to start, I is going to be zero. So that's why I'm saying 0 plus 1. Next time, I is going to be 1, 1 plus 1, 2. And it continues, goes on like that all the way until it is done with all the elements. So now I need the name of the country. Then, of course, I need the date added. So here I'll simply say date added. And then lastly, I need added by. Sorry. I'll need added by. So I'll say TD. I'll say um, added by. Then of course I now need the buttons for edit and delete. So again, I'll simply put TD here. I'll put buttons there. There's one for delete. So I have a button with a class of button small. Well, I don't need them to be buttons as per se, but let's just put it like this. Let's say I want to put sorry. Let's say I want to put an anchor. Yeah, I think that will be okay. Then instead of saying delete here, I'll put a font awesome icon. Font awesome, solid, font awesome, edit, font awesome, large, font awesome, fixed width. So that should give me that class. Then I'll close, of course, my icon, and of course, I'll close my anchor. So that should be that. It's not a button, and it's not delete. It's not delete. It is edit. So that's edit. Then I can put another one for delete, like that. Then of course, once I'm done, I can close the table row. Now you know how to create a table row. I'm just showing you how to automate the process. So it's going to look through all the data elements that we get, and then it will create a table row. So once it's done with the table row, we need to come to this table. Did you give it a T-body? We didn't give it a T-body. So we need to give it a T-body here. That's how you structure a table. So we're going to get this table. Then we're going to put the elements inside it. So we're going to say, get this table, find the T-body, then change the HTML to the results that we have generated. So this variable called results. So it's going to contain all the records for as it's looping. So that's how that works out. And if everything is okay, that should be able to allow us to be able to display the countries. So I'll take this function and I'll just run it up here. I'll simply say get us existing countries. So when the page loads, we simply load the existing countries like that. Okay, so I'll come here and I'll refresh it, and if everything is okay, it's telling me the URL is not found. So you can see clearly now I can be able to see the errors and work with them. So the URL that I've specified is not found. So when you go to localhost controllers, so I jumped up one level. I did not need to jump up one level. I just need to go inside the folder directly. So I remove this like that. So from where I am on settings here. So from settings, I'm simply saying go into a folder called controllers, then go to country operations, then execute this. So that's where I made a mistake. And let's try it again and see if it works out. It still tells me Expedia. No, I've spelled me this one. This is controllers. It should be controllers. So again, we come back and say controllers, controllers. Okay. Then we try again. So when I come to the network and I check get country operations, I can see it's giving me the countries. It's giving me the countries. The only problem is it's not displaying the countries inside here. So why is that the case? I think it's probably I did not give the countries, the table a name called countries table. So I need to come here and I'll take this table here and I'll give it an ID of countries table. So that's what I did not do. So I need to give it that ID. So when I'm referring to that ID, it picks the table, comes, locates the T-body, then it populates that information. So let's try that again. So you can see I have undefined, 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 not good. So the error that's coming back should say country ID and country name. Fine. So let's come here. The error comes is country, not country. That should be country. All right. So this should be trash. Well, I don't know if I didn't give you the font or some light ones. The light ones actually look better, but let's see. So yes, I have country. I don't have all the other parameters like date added and added by. And of course, even the icons don't work. So let me just use the solid ones. I don't like the solid ones. I like the light ones. But because we don't have them as a free source, let's just use whatever is available. So yeah, that is okay. So now you can see I have country, but I don't have date added and I don't have added by. So I can actually go and fix those inside the table so that now this starts working fine. So I'll pick my table here. I'll make adjustments to it. Alter. I will add here date added. That's the time. Then added by, that will be integer. So whoever added should be shown. So I'll save that. And of course, when I come to my countries and I refresh, I can now put default values. I can just copy this value and paste them here. Like that. Then of course added by will simply say users. The user is actually there. So that's user ID number 3. So we'll put here 3333333 like that. Then of course we're going to change our query for get countries, and we're going to add some components. So we're going to say here join, because you're combining the table called users as U. So this one will be C for country. Get all fields from country. Then U for users on U dot, I think it's user ID, is equals to C dot, which is the country here, added by. Of course, here we need to get the names of the person. So we're going to concatenate it as a string. Concat. First name, last name. So I'll say first name space last name. Then I'll give it an alias as added by name. From countries, give it this an alias of C because you're referring to it as C here and also as C here. Then that should be able to allow us to have that name correctly. So it should be added by name. So I'll come back to my code here, and instead of added by, I'll put added by name. I think the rest are okay. We'll try that again, see if everything is fixed. Yeah, so you can see now at that point everything looks fixed, and now our application does not look that bad. Of course, I know the font is not very good. What you might want to do is use a font like Poppins to make sure that your 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 UI looks nicer. But that is not my focus for now. My focus is showing us actually how to create this CRUD operation as far as now the UI is concerned. So let's go to how do we add a new country. So when I click on add a new country, I'm supposed to pop up a model that will ask me to enter the name of the country. Maybe say I want to create a new country called South Africa, for example. So when I click on add, it should pop up a model, allow me to input South Africa, click on save, then it should be able to save that country. Now, one thing I know for sure is that country, in my case, might not have other parameters that I need. So I'll come to save country over here. and I will add another field called user ID. User ID, the user who is saving it, right? This is going to be an integer. Then when the country does not exist, so I will insert the country name. I will insert the date added. I will also insert the user who added it. Okay. So the date that it was added will be the current date and time, which is now, and the user who added it will be user ID, like that. So yeah, that should allow me to be able to save it. So when I save it, should of course now allow me to save with those parameters. The only thing I need to come back and do is back inside my model here where I have my country. So country operations also. When I'm saving a country, I'll not need anything when I'm saving a country there. But of course, when I come to my model, which is model, and I pick the country's model. So here, of course, when I'm creating the database, I think for me is when I can be able to define the user. So I declared here a user ID. So when the program, when you're launching this particular model, every time it is starting, it will check if the user ID is there, and it will set it to user ID. Of course, we don't need this part moving forward, so this should just be okay. Once you log in, the user ID will always be there who has logged in. So that's perfect. So when I come to saving, when I come to saving my user, that should be users. So when I say save, the only thing I need to do here, not user, but this was country. When I'm saving my country, the only thing I need to add here is the user who saved it. So that will be uh, this current object. Then we'll pick the user ID field. And of course, this one is a number, so we just enclose it in curly brackets like that. So that will go to the DB because country extends DB, so it has all the parameters that DB has. And this is a property of the DB, which is created, which is assigned a value when the particular object is being created. And it checks if the user is logged in, it gives that ID. If the user has not logged in, it gives it an ID of 1. So that should be able to fix our issue. So our UI should now be able to work properly. So those are the only two changes I needed to make on the countries tab where I'm saving, so that I pass the user who is logged in, and of course the stored procedure where I pass the country name, and of course in the table I've added those two columns, date added and added by, which we are also inserting as we're creating the user. So those are the only changes that we have. So what we need to do is now to go back to our settings, and now we need to create models down here after the body here, or right before the body, so we can say this is model for country details. So we'll get different models for different things. So model is that pop-up window that's going to appear whenever you say add a new button. So again, just come back to Bootstrap here and say I want Bootstrap strap for model. You pick that. So this is what a model looks like. This is what a model looks like. So just copy this code. It will give you this model. Then you can customize it however you want. You don't need to write it from the ground up. So I'll copy and paste it down here. I'll move it inside like that. I'll move this one outside. So everything has to be inside the model. Then the model has content, so everything has to be inside content. Then there's model header, which is okay, model body and model footer, so they are perfectly okay. So for the title, I'll simply say country details. Country details. Then I like having the save button on first, then the other button following, the cancel following. So I'll put save button first, just drag it upwards. Then instead of primary, I'll give it success, and I'll make the button smaller. So also this one, I'll make it red but outline, which means it's going to be not the shade is going the shade inside is not going to be red, but when you hover over it, then the shade changes to red. Then I also make it smaller. So there's a bit of customization that you might be forced to do. Now the button, you might need to give it an ID and say this is save country, like that. Then now we need to put a form here where the user can now be able to type the country. So here I'll put a form group, then I'll put a label, then I'll say country name. So I'll put here country name. Then I'll put an input where somebody can type the name of the country, input country name. I'll give it form control small. So these are just bootstrap classes that allows you. So input was supposed to be of type text. Then the other one was supposed to be an ID. Sorry about that. Like that. So country name, not name. So that model will be okay. Then here give the model an ID. So simply say ID. This is country details model. So the model is there. It's not going to work, but it's there. So what you're going to do is we're going to define this add button and this country's model. So when you click on this add button over here, it shows the model for the country. So we're going to come here. We're going to declare two more variables and say add new country button is something with an ID of add new country. Then the other one is country details model. I think it's also country details model, like that. So when I click on this button down here, so show country details model, show country details model. So when I click on this button, I'm supposed to show this model. So when you click on it, run the following callback function. Then I'll simply say this model dot model, and I'll say show. So that should be able to show the model. Let's see if it works. Control F5, add new country. It's not working. Let's see. Is there an error? There's no error in the console. So this is add new country. So add new country. So is that how we call it? We said county, not country. That was my mistake. Sorry. Come back again. Press Control F5 to refresh. Add new country. Still not coming. What's the issue? Is there an error on the console? There's no error. Okay, let's find out. So that's add new country, add new country, add new country. Is it the only one? Let's check on the settings user interface here. Control F. It's only one. So button the ID of add new country. The model is country details model. This is county. I don't know why I wrote country as county. I think that's where my problems are. So this one should. Now this was. I think this was okay. That's why it was not showing. So again, sometimes you need to debug your application. So now you can see the model has come, and I already have now where I can type the name of the country. I can say here South Africa. Of course, I have not told it how to save, so still it might not be able to save that. So we're going to move to that next. So let's do the logic for actually saving the country. So I'll need to provide the country ID. I'll also need to provide notifications here so that when somebody says save and they have not provided the country, I can tell them there's a problem. If somebody says save and the country exists, I can tell them the country exists, and so forth and so forth. So I'll need to have a notification up here, and the other field for country ID, which should now be able to tell me whether I'm adding a new one or I am updating an existing one. So okay, now so what I'm going to do is I'll come to settings here. And inside this model, just before the country name here, I'll put notifications, country details, notifications. So the notification is going to go there. Then I'm going to have another one. Input here is going to be hidden, but it's going to have the country ID, country ID. By default, we're going to give it a value of 0 because 0 means we are always adding a new entry like that. So we define these two variables, then we also define the save button. Then now we do our validation and we do the saving. So I'll come here, I'll say country details notifications equals country details notifications. It's good to copy and paste, but let me assume it's right. So then I'll have country ID equals country ID, then country name. Because these are fields, I'll add a field so that they don't look like variables, they are DOM elements. So we have here country name, then we have the save button, save country button equals save country. Then I'll have another one here called input field. That will be anything that is an input. Okay, so that is okay. I'm going to use this one to empty errors. That's why I've declared it over there. So country ID, country name, save country. So I have country ID, country name, save country. That's okay. And of course, this country notifications is also here. I'll need to check that it is there. It's spelled correctly. Now, when somebody clicks on save country here, so I can collapse this and also this. So I'll come here and I'll say save country. So I'll take this button. When you click on it, run the following function. Sometimes I can use function declaration, sometimes I can use arrow function. So it will, anonymous functions, sometimes I can use arrow function. So it will depend on your style. So you can see here I've used an arrow function. Here I've used a function declaration or anonymous function. So whichever style you pick, it's all gonna work out. But you can't combine the two of them. You decide which one you're going to use. So when you pick the country, the first thing I'm going to do is declare variables, and I only need two. One is country ID, and this country ID is going to be extracted inside this country field. So the value inside this country field, like that. Then this country name will be extracted in this country name field. Now I'll indent this one, so I'll say dot val. Now somebody can also put spaces, so I'll put trim to remove any spaces that somebody might have typed in the country name. But also there are countries that have that apostrophe, and apostrophe is going to be a problem for us when it comes to SQL. So I can replace those single apostrophes with double ones. So this one will prevent SQL injection. Okay, so after that I'll simply check for blank fields over here. So I'll simply say if country name is blank. We're not going to do anything if country name is blank. We're just going to tell the person, please provide the country name, right? So I'll declare another variable here. So I'll say let errors here is equals to blank. So here I'll simply say errors is equals, please enter country name, like that. Then I'm going to set focus over the country name so they can continue entering the name. So focus on that. Then of course, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this notification and show them the error there. So this notification.html, I can create a div get a div here with a class of, sorry, with a class of alert info. Then I will display my errors over there. So then I will close my div. Of course, this one has to be a template string for that concatenation to work. Single that and that, so that this one works. Otherwise, if you don't put a template string, that will not work out. So if that is the case, then that's what would happen. Otherwise, if the country name was provided, then we need to save the country. So what we're going to do is we'll take this one and still use alert. This is alert hyphen info. This is alert hyphen also info. Then we're going to say here processing, please wait, right? Like that. So processing, please wait. Then of course now we're going to save. So save, we're going to invoke the query. We're going to tell it to post. Then where does it post? Go inside a folder called controllers. Then inside controllers, go inside country operations.php. Then post the following payload. When you come to country operations and you say save country, so this country ID and country name. So that should be set to true. Then we said country ID and country name. Now I've given them the same variable names here. This should be country, not county. Country ID. So this is the same as saying that. Okay, we had learned about that. So this is the field name being passed over here, and of course this other one is the variable being passed, which is what is over here. Since they are the same, I just removed that. Sorry, I just removed that portion since the variable names are the same. Now what will happen here, this will give me some data. When it's successful, it's going to give me some data. Okay, so what I need to do is just check if that data is JSON, and if the country exists, then of course we do all the other things. Otherwise, if there was, so I can use post and I can use done here. So still done or check if it's a JSON object, whatever is going to be easier for you. So I'll simply say if is JSON, this one, the data that came back, then we'll need to pass that data as JSON. So I'll simply say data equals JSON pass data. Okay. Then I'm going to say if data.status is equal to success, it means that it was successful. Otherwise, if data.status equals exists, we know the country exists. Otherwise, it was just an error. So if it is not a JSON object, then it means it was an error. So if it was successful, I'll simply take this over here and I'll say this is going to be alert, this is going to be alert success. So it means going to appear in green color, and I'll say country saved successful. Country saved successfully. Otherwise, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you, sorry, the country name already exists. So that will be info, and I'll say, sorry, country already exists. Now, of course, if there was just an error, it was not a JSON object, I'll simply tell you, sorry, that will be danger. Errors are shown in red. So I'll simply say here, sorry, an error occurred. Then I will display that error that occurred. whatever the error is. Then, of course, if it is successful, I need to update my table, update countries table. So somebody can be able to see the country that has been added. To update the countries table, simply call this function. That's why we wrote it as a function so that we can reuse it over and over again. So with that in mind, it should be able to allow us to check for errors. It should be able to allow us to save the country and of course to display the refreshed list of the countries. The only thing I've not done is whenever there is a change in the field, I need to empty the errors. So um, this one will be clear errors when input fields are typed into. So I'll take input field. When you input on it, run the following function. And this function, what it's going to do is just going to clear these errors. So it will take that and it will say HTML will be blank. So this one should go back here like that. So every time you input on a field, it automatically clears that error. That's just a nice helper function to help you clear that field every time a user types on it. So let's try it out and see if it works. Well, it would be a good idea to put icons on these buttons. So let's just put them settings. So here we can put icon.fontawesome, solid.fontawesome, save.fontawesome, large.fontawesome, fixed width. So those are the classes, sorry. Those are the classes that I want to have on this. Then for the other one, it's just going to be an X. This one here. Close. So we change that icon instead of save to be times. Something like that. Then we try that again and see how that works out. So again, our cities are okay. Add a new country. Try to save without adding a country name. It tells me please enter country name. As I enter the country name, you can see the error goes away, South Africa. Then I click on save. It has saved successfully and I'm seeing South Africa is actually here on the list. Is that okay? So that is, we have fetched the data, we have created a model, we have been able to save the model. So the next thing we need to do is let's edit an existing country. Say we had made a mistake on the name. So since we have made a mistake on the name, let's edit the country. Okay. So what I'm going to do is we're going to use what we call event delegation. Now, what happens is that when this table is being defined up here, where's the table? It should be here. It means that the data will not have been loaded on the table. So whatever is inside the table will not actually be available. So we are going to use what we call event delegation to allow us to be able to fetch that data. So what we're going to do here is say edit an existing country. So what you're going to do is you're going to listen to this table here, because that's the one that has all the entries. So, well, I don't know what happened there. I only did the variable name. That part, that's the only part I did it. Then I will listen when somebody clicks on it, and when somebody clicks on something that says edit. When somebody clicks on it that says edit, then I'm going to run the following function. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to say const. This is going to be country ID. And this country ID, as you can see when we are populating the country, we are giving it, we're taking the row and we're giving it that ID. So if I click on edit, I just need to go to the parent of edit, which is the table row, then get the data ID. Get the data ID for that particular row representing the element that was clicked. So I'll click on edit, it will jump to the table row, then get me the data ID that will give me the country ID. I can search the country ID, then from there I can be able to populate the uh, the model with the details of the country so that now we are able just to add the country nicely. Okay, so here I'm going to say this refers to the current object that was clicked. Then I'll say closest tr. So go upwards until you reach something like a tier, the parent. So as I've said, if I click on this edit, I need to traverse the DOM upwards until I reach tier. So for each row, there's a tier and a corresponding tier. So when I click on edit, yeah, go up until tier. Then from the once you reach the tier, then get me the data ID. Okay, so that will be dot data ID. That should give you the country ID. Then here now you fetch the details of the country. Then you load on the model, and then of course you display the model. As simple as that. So fetch the details. So I'll simply say here jQuery get JSON, go to controllers, then go to country operations.php. Then when you insert the country operations, you get country details, which is what you set to true. And then of course you get the country ID. Then once you're done, you're going to get some data. So when you're done, some data is going to come in. And when it fails, we also know that you're going to get a response, a status, and an error. So at least those three things are going to come back to us like that. So of course, when it fails, I'm simply going to take my country notifications and tell you an error occurred, like here. But when everything is successful, because I'm only expecting one set of data, I'll say get the, because it's going to be an array of elements, so get the first element. Then I'll say country ID will be data dot country ID. And of course, this should be, sorry, this should be country ID field dot field, not filed, field dot value would be this data here. And of course, country name field dot value will be data dot country name. Remember that everything we have done on the sort procedure. So if country ID is not 0, it's going to update. If country ID is 0, it's going to create a new one. So everything is handled. Then from here, of course, we can now load the model. So the model here is this country details model. Because these fields are inside it, we'll simply say dot model, then we say show. So that should allow us to be able to do the uh, to do the editing. So that should be there, and of course, no, load the model. Okay, I don't know why I put it twice. So that should be able to allow us to make changes to a country that exists. So let's come and try and see. Refresh F5 and say we want to change Tanzania to TZ. We say edit. You can see the name has come here as Tanzania. Then we say TZ, and we say save. And you can see the name here has changed to TZ. So it works perfectly. Actually, if you go to the database, trust me, it has changed it to TZ. So you can see it's Tanzania. When I refresh, now it is TZ. Now the only thing we need to do is to clear our fields. Every time we save, we need to clear our fields so that now you can add a new one directly. Otherwise, it will refuse. It will tell you the country name already exists or something of the sort. So when you are saving the country here, so clear country fields. So I'll say function. I'm writing as a function because I can reuse it more than one times. Clear country fields. No parameters. I'll say country ID field dot value will be 0. Then country name field dot value will be blank, and then you set focus on it. That is chaining. JavaScript allows chaining. So instead of writing this twice, because ideally what I would have done is to write this one like this. So I would have, sorry, I would have copied that, pasted it down here, then moved the focus here. Yeah, so that's how I would have written it. But because here, before this dot, I'm referring to county field, I can just go ahead and change this one up here. And sometimes when you're reading code that are written by other people, you'll probably see things that look like this. So that is actually very valid and allowed. So what would happen is just copy this function. After you save a country and you refresh the list, then you clear the fields for a new entry. So I'll just call that. And I think that should be able to work out. Yeah, I know this is quite a lot. So let's see. Okay, we can try that, see if it works out. So that's still fine. TZ is fine. I can come and edit it. And I say it's now Tanzania. And I save. And you can see it's Tanzania. Then when I say now I'm talking about Eritrea. Do we have Eritrea? We have Eritrea. Let's talk about Somalia. We don't have Somalia here. So I just simply say I want to add Somalia. And I save. And you can see Somalia has now been added on the list. And that is how this works out. So you can see I've done that. The only thing I've not done is to show you how to delete it, which probably for the interest of time we can't be able to achieve right now. But I'm going to show us how to do that in the next class. But what you need to do now, next is probably now implement the rest. You can implement cities, you can implement airlines, you can implement currencies. Probably you can even implement flights. Maybe this airline offers these flights on these dates, and probably the seat configuration, every other thing that we've done. I have not included all of them here, but this is where we're going to do our setup, and all the information that we are going to get are going to be based on the ideas that I've just displayed over here. So you need to know how to create a table, you need to know how to use a model, then you need to also know how to do maybe validation, and of course how now we are utilizing the APIs that we had written before to be able to now use them in our front end and see how these applications are working out. So I think I'll take a break at that point and probably now give us an opportunity to ask for any questions or comments that might be available. Any questions or comments, you can raise your hand, you can type in the chat box, you can also uh, uh, unmute your microphone and ask if there is any question. No question? All right, so if there's no question, I think I'll leave it at that. I will share the source code with you, the changes that I've made to the source code on the GitHub repo. And I'm also going to share this video on YouTube for your interest, for those who would like to follow it up later on the what we have discussed today. So you can see it's been quite massive, but that's really how programming is usually done. So it's incremental. You make it complicated. You implement more complicated features as you move along. But as you can see, once you separate your concerns very easily, it makes it very easy for you to be able to even identify errors as they come in and fix them as we go. All right. So yeah, in that case, there is no question. Since there's no question, I'll take a break at that, and I'll see you again next time. Thank you and have a lovely afternoon.